And look at this. He is the real deal. Another twist of fate. Another twist of fate in a romp here in the El Camino Real Derby.
Mucho gusto. Impressive in victory. Cruises home by 5 easy lengths.
Super Ski is the one that emerges. Super Ski at the quarter pole has made a very big move, and it lands him 3.5 lengths in front.
It's War of Will. War of Will from Country House. Then Boyland. War of Will. Miles followed them again. Won the Risen Star from Country House.
The Risen Star, $400,000, 50 points on the line, 8.5 furlongs, grade 2, and in New Orleans at the fairgrounds. Had a full field, about 13 horses in here, a number of interesting prospects, including Country House, trained by Bill Mott. You had Royland from the Tom Amos barn. You had another horse that was getting a lot of buzz named Owendale, lightly raced but talented, out of the Brad Cox barn. Of course, the trainer of Monomoy Girl, the 3-year-old filly champion. Brett Calhoun, who recently just scored his 3,000th win as a trainer, and congratulations to Brett Calhoun for stepping into elite company with that 3,000th win. He had a horse in this Risen Star by the name of Mr. Money, a horse that you may have heard about in 2018 with some proven back class on the turf. He was in this race, and there were a number of other horses. Steve Asmussen had Limonite in here. So there were a number of horses in here. Also, Asmussen had Gunnet in here, and he was part of the early pace scenario setting the fractions. And another horse that we want to mention before we get into the breakdown of this was Plus Que Parfait, who was the runner-up to Signal Man out of Kenny McPeak's barn in the Kentucky Jockey Club, a race in which Breeders' Cup juvenile runner-up Nix Go bombed in that race, and he has since not run well in the Sam F. Davis, so right now Nix Go is a toss. But Plus Que Parfait had run very well in that Kentucky Jockey Club at the Churchill Strip for Rodolphe Brousset, who was, of course, the initial trainer of Justified before he was placed in the hands of the venerable Bob Baffert. And so, with that being said, War of Will, trained by Mark Casse, the winner of the Lecomte Stakes, was coming in just like Instilled Regard in 2018 as the hot horse. And remember, Instilled Regard in the early Derby dozen for Steve Haskin and some of the other handicappers was the number 1. Then he disappointed in that 4th place finish in the Risen Star, which was won by Bravazzo, which is the last time Bravazzo has been in the winner's circle. As you know, he's been one of the top 3-year-olds of 2018, recently finished 4th in the Pegasus World Cup Invitational. And therefore, people were wondering, is War of Will the 2019 version of Instilled Regard? Is he going to bomb in this race, or is he going to live up to his favorite status? He drew the number 14 hole, the outside post, but what he was able to accomplish, and really, in a sense, it was a win in terms of having a chance to prevail in this race, was for him to be able to establish position from the 14 hole. Tyler Gaffleone did a fantastic job, and the horse himself, in being able to basically use a little speed and tuck right in into the top 3, get a nice little, position where he wasn't stuck 5 or 6 wide, didn't lose any significant ground at all, was able to stalk a pace in which the fractions were 23.71 for the first quarter, 47.36 legitimate racehorse time on the half, 112.20 on the turn. So the front runner started to tire, and this is where War of Will made his move and took over the race. The mile, 137.87. He went on in the stretch and held off Country House, never really diminishing in his stride efficiency. Didn't give up any ground to anyone else, and really kicked on nicely to win in 144.59. for the mile and a 16th, registering a 2 1/4 length victory over the Bill Mott trained Country House, who finished a length and a half in front of Royland, who was 2 1/4 lengths in front of Hog Creek Hustle. Then Limonite, however you pronounce that, was 5th. Maniwa 6th. Mr. Money for Brett Calhoun was 7th. And then, of course, Owendale, disappointed for Brad Cox, in 8th. Chase the Ghost 9th. Henley's Joy, trained by Michael Maker, another horse proven on the turf as well as Mr. Money. He finished 10th in here. Actually, Mr. Money, was more dirt. He was actually more of a dirt staple, a dirt stalwart as a 2-year-old. I got that misconstrued there. Forgive me for that. But Henley's Joy was the horse coming in with the turf background. So let's go ahead and smooth that out. Henley's Joy was 10th for Mike Maker, and then Dump was 11th. Gunnet, one of the early pace setters for Steve Asmussen, finished 12th. Plus Que Parfait, big disappointment, finishing 13th in here. And then Frolic More for trainer Dallas Stewart was 14th. Plus K Parfait, this is definitely going to put him on the toss list with Coliseum and with Knicks Go and a few other horses. He's, persona non grata right now. He is going to have to prove that this race was a complete aberration versus what he's capable of. Whether he got a bad trip or not, everyone's going to have to do a little reviewing on his tape if he decides to stay for the Louisiana Derby or find another prep. People are going to have to look back and say, well, why would he be given another chance? And obviously there's something that went on with him, or maybe he just simply got outrun by 12 other horses. It could be just as simple as that. He's not fast enough. But, I think there's a little bit more hope that he's a better horse than that for those who think he has any intrinsic value off the Kentucky Jockey Club. But let's go back, as Zeus and Lauren would once say, give me the bad news first and then we can chase it with the good. And the good happens to lie with the horses that ran very well in here. War of Will, again, showing that tactical talent to be able to get over in a nice position from the worst hole that you can get. Now, in the Kentucky Derby, if he can make it there, if he can do what he's expected to do in the Louisiana Derby, which Mark Casse is targeted for his next start right there at Louisiana, same bat channel, same bat time, and in this case, same racetrack, same situation, longer distance. The 14 hole is not going to be tremendously disadvantageous, although that will be definitely, we'll know the breadth and depth of that based on, the inside and outside speed of a 14 if he were to get that hole. What's encouraging is that if he doesn't get an ideal post, that, like a Smarty Jones, he doesn't need absolute help to win, although you want a better post position for a horse that's got some tactical speed. But it is nice to know that he doesn't have to have everything absolutely go his way, but he does need to, be forwardly placed, and he certainly, like any good horse, you don't want to be 6 or 7 wide or 15 wide in a major grade 1 race going 2 turns and a route of ground. So he was very, very good early, 3 wide, made his move at the 3 furlongs and accelerated very, very nicely on a level that you would believe he can get the mile and an eighth. We'll have to wait and see. Country House, the excuse really, you can't really, forward the excuse that he got a really bad trip. From my description, he basically was 4.5 wide, which is not ideal, but in a packed field like that, and with a horse that has the stamina, if you believe he has the stamina to go further, he was able to make his move and make his bid and close very strongly to get the place spot. And so at a mile and an eighth, things may change. These other horses, War will include it, might not want that added distance, and he may relish it and may end up getting maybe a little bit better trip. Certainly he's shown that he can be a little wide and be effective. But again, going a distance of ground, again, that stamina has to be, upgraded, because if you don't get things to go your way, you've got to have that extra reserve in order to be able to overcome these things. And then, of course, the question is, let's say if you get to the Derby stage, can you come back in the Preakness and do it all over again in 13.5 days? Hence 2 weeks later at Pimlico. So again, we're far from that, but that's certainly some of the things you have to think about, including in the immediate future. If Country House and Bill Mott and the connections come back in the Louisiana Derby, we'll wait and see what the Hall of Famer will announce as to whether he'll ship out and go to Arkansas or whether he slots into something in New York or Kentucky. My guess is going to be maybe the Florida Derby or the Louisiana Derby are going to be in play, but it very well could be, might get a little time, and it could be one of those aforementioned races in Kentucky or New York or something like that, or the Arkansas Derby. We'll just have to wait and see. But he ran a really nice race in a field in which there are going to be contention. They're going to be explanations made by trainers and jockeys. We didn't get the right trip. But again, when your horse is too slow, doesn't matter what kind of trip you get. If you don't have the afterburners and you don't have the mock speed, it's pointless as to, to make that a legitimate case. But some of these horses are going to come back because, as Charles C. Canty once said, horsemen are notoriously skeptical, and they're going to try War of Will again, whether it be some of these horses in here. And I think it could be argued that there's a good chance that with a little more money on the line, the added distance, that generally about half of these horses are going to funnel back into the Louisiana Derby. And since some of these are trained by super trainers, particularly Steve Asmussen, who seems to have 1,000 horses running in different spots in the East Coast, that there's a chance a couple of them can be interswitched and run in Arkansas, just like the Asmussen horses that failed in the Southwest may get switched out to come to Louisiana. We'll have to see how that unfolds. But meantime, War of Will, he's won the top 2 races at the fairgrounds, the Lecomte and the Risen Star. Very impressive. He tactically looks like a horse that makes for good Derby material. The Louisiana Derby, will certainly find out if that is going to be the case. Again, the son of International Superstar sire Warfront wins the Risen Star by 2 1/4 lengths in 144.59 for trainer Mark Cassese.
3/4 in 1 minute 12.20 seconds. It's War of Will coming down to the final furlong, staying on his country house. The dump had a take-up off of heels. Charging on the outside, Hog Creek Hustle. They come inside the final 16th. It's War of Will, chased on by Country House. Past the 16th. It's War of Will. War of Will from Country House. Then Boyland. War of Will. Miles follow them again. Then the Risen Star from Country House.